Alright, Cucks, it's your boy the Hater, and this is going to be the last video before WrestleMania review. As a matter of fact, it's the last video before WrestleMania starts anyways, cuckolds. So you could be watching the pre-show, or you could be watching this. Obviously, this is far more entertaining than Sam from Jim and Sam embarrassing himself and saying WrestleMania 39 is one of the best WrestleManias ever. It's fucking retarded. Anyways, let's get to it, motherfucks. The news on the wire here is that The Rock says that his new final boss character is based on Darth Vader. Now, this is obviously just The Rock trying to compare himself to Darth Vader, because if you know anything, you know that this is not a new character, right? How is it a new character? This is the problem with wrestling marks, right? And every fan nowadays is a stupid mark. Let's be real. It's not a new character. There's nothing new about The Rock being an asshole, right? And beating up bad guys. The Rock has done this all the time in the past. Now, like, go watch The Rock destroying Mankind. Far worse than he destroyed Cucky Rhodes. Now, with that being said, the underlying problem here is that wrestling fans fundamentally don't understand what a character is. They believe that any slight change in personality is a new character. They believe that the addition of any new catchphrase or any new costume or anything like that constitutes a new character, right? Now, the problem is, no, it doesn't. And by looking at it this way, by creating this image, people then forget about the importance of character and the importance of character change in keeping yourself relevant. So, as usual, your boy is here to help you out. I'm going to give you some examples of situations where there is no character change, as well as some examples of situations where there is a character change. So, number one, cucksters. First, The Rock pretending that he's now this new character called the Final Boss is ridiculous, and it's fundamentally stupid. It's not a new character. It's literally just Hollywood Rock mixed with a little bit of Corporation Rock. It's the same thing. As a matter of fact, Hollywood Rock is like, kind of a character because it's basically like the Hollywood douchebag gimmick, that Miz does, but with a Rock, right? So it's a little bit, that is kind of a character, but this is not, right? This is the same character as just heel Rock, He's not doing anything that another heel wouldn't do, right? That's the problem. The problem is, like, here's how you know it's not a character. If The Rock turned heel, like if you didn't know that The Rock was going to turn heel and The Rock turned heel, this is exactly how you'd expect him to behave, right? It's not a new character. This is exactly how a heel Rock would behave. So how is it a new character? If he behaves consistently with how he has behaved in the past and how you would expect him to behave. Nevertheless, let's give an example of a real character change. One of my personal favorites, Chris Jericho, going from, the Ayatollah of rock and rolla, basically just going from being Chris Jericho to the 2009, suit gimmick Jericho. That is a complete gimmick change, right? This is completely inconsistent with how Jericho is portrayed. He had been portrayed as this fun-loving rock star, larger-than-life personality, and now he went into this more reserved and critical, suit-wearing, person who thinks he's better than you, but in this, cold and calculated way, right? I thought it was a great gimmick change, and it was a new character. The way he cut his promos was different. The things he would say in the promos were different. The way he would wrestle was different. He became much more grounded and much more sadistic. The way he would look was different. Everything about the character was different, cucks. Another great character change that I often bring up, the change between Elijah Burke to the Pope, D'Angelo De Niro. That is a gimmick change and a personality change and a character change, because the first iteration was completely different than the second iteration. Now, obviously, there's gimmick changes that are bad too. Like, for example, John Cena went from his, white rapper, who's unaware that he's a white rapper, basically. Like his fucking Ali G gimmick, if you will, right? Which was like a comedy gimmick that then became kind of serious. He went from that to just like Superman, right? And that's a gimmick change, and a lot of people think that's a change in the wrong direction, right? But, for example, Roman Reigns, people are like, oh, this new Roman Reigns is great. It's the same fucking Roman Reigns. He's just a heel, right? Wrestling characters are always two-dimensional, except for if you're like a legend like Rey Mysterio, who's always been a face. wrestling characters are always two-dimensional. They have a heel side and a face side. And as soon as you see a wrestler, right, you immediately start thinking, oh, what would they be like if they weren't a face or a heel, but they were the opposite, right, of what they actually are? This is common. This is why people were saying, oh, we want Cena to turn heel, because they were envisioning what a heel Cena would look like. They were envisioning what a heel Roman would look like. But we all had that envisioning, and it didn't stray from it, right? Like, if Roman Reigns, for example, went from the big dog of the Shield, who was being pushed down our throats, quote unquote, and he became like, I don't know, the Undertaker, like his next gimmick was he's a demon, and now he's a heel, that would be a gimmick shift. But if he carries himself the exact same way, right, like a champion, and he's just heel, it's the same gimmick, right? What is different about good guy Roman Reigns and bad guy Roman Reigns? Well, one of them says, suffer and succotash, and the other one says, acknowledge me. But that's not enough, as we've just established, to encapsulate a new gimmick, right? So that's an example of a situation where there's a slight change, but the slight change is not sufficient to create a new gimmick. Another great example would be Cucky Rhodes going from Cucky Rhodes to Stardust. That's a gimmick change. It's a completely different thing. He even had new moves. Like, I will give credit where credit's due. Cody Rhodes understands that, at least, right? He understands that if he's going to be fucking Stardust, he's going to need to have some new moves, right? He started doing like the diamond dust from the corner. He started doing the dark matter, or whatever the fuck it was called. And then he still kept some of his moves, but he started doing new moves, right? But Cody Rhodes, who's blonde and has a neck tattoo, is the same thing as the Cody Rhodes before Stardust. It's the same fucking thing. You know what I mean? He just went back to being that Cody, and he also colored his hair, right? Cody Rhodes with or without a mustache is still the same thing. They're like, oh, the Cody Rhodes is mustache gimmick. It's not a gimmick, you dipshit. It's not a personality. It's just an asshole with a mustache, right? But, for example, the undashing gimmick and even the dashing gimmick are different personalities. They are different characters. Because Cody Rhodes in Evolution is just basically like, like a Nepo baby who's trying to, impress Randy Orton. After that, he becomes self-absorbed and he becomes like a beauty consultant, which is fundamentally a different gimmick. And that's something that makes sense. So, there you have it. For these reasons alone, and I shouldn't finish this video without talking about the greatest, arguably, gimmick change of all time. And that is the American Badass, The Undertaker. That, my friends, is a legitimate gimmick change. It is a legitimate character difference, right? You know how you know? Nobody has to ever tell you this is a new character, right? With The Rock, like, unless The Rock started, The Rock started calling himself the final boss, and he has to say, this is a new character I'm working on. You know what I mean? Because obviously it's not a new character. So that's kind of the idea, cuckwads. The point is, The Rock has to explain to you that something new is happening here, because inherently you don't see it, because nothing really new is happening, right? But Undertaker never had to come out and say, I'm no longer the dead man. I'm now a biker, right? You just, like, the character spoke for itself, right? The Undertaker went from being like a demon character, and he became just a badass biker, right? He kept the name Undertaker for obvious reasons, but the idea was that the Undertaker player, the Undertaker, was clearly a new character. His motivations were different, his interests were different, and guess what? As usual, his movesets were different, cock. He had to come in with a new finisher. You can't use the tombstone as the dead man. I mean, maybe as a one-off move, but he needed a new finisher, right? And that's how that went down. And then he bounced back to fucking, to, the dead man again. And then eventually he became the American Badass at the very last moment of his career, where he debuted with like a different theme song altogether, and when he had the AJ Styles match. But anyways, point being, cucks, there's a clear difference between a character change and just a change in personality, right? They're not the same thing. I know they sound similar to the dumbasses out there, but it's a big difference. A change in character involves a fundamental change, and a change in personality could be something that is commensurate with the story, right? So, for example, if tomorrow, let's say they have an angle where, Maurice cheats on The Miz, and The Miz becomes paranoid, that's not a new character. Oh, he's playing the paranoid guy. No, that is commensurate with what the story entails. Same thing here with The Rock. The Rock is the final boss because they're treating him as an afterthought. That's the idea. Like, Cody Rhodes is treating him as an afterthought, taking his spot away, pissing everyone off. But the truth is, cucks, the fans were obviously wrong about that, and Cody Rhodes should be in the Jobber title match today against Seth Rollins, and tomorrow we could have had The Rock versus Roman. But we'll see how it goes. You never know, right, Cooks? Hopefully Roman Reigns retains at least. You know what I'm saying, motherfuckers?